All right, trekkers, I know what you're thinking. Why are we in the desert? Why am I wearing this Marine Corps 3rd Gen kit with a Hawaiian t-shirt on? You already know what's happening. It's part 2 of our basic AVID shooter kit setup. Guys, in this part 2, I'm going to be avoiding some redundancies. First of all, because of the first video that's already out, you can go and watch that and learn about the bare bones basic kit setup that I've already dropped. Secondly, because if you are an AVID shooter, you really do need to know the basics already, so I'm not gonna adhere to you, all right? So you need to know it before watching this. And finally, guys, before we get into it, if you find this informative, if you like what's going on with these Molly monologues, this dadgum wind, dude. Yeah. I can't wait to hear it in the audio. Anyways, if you find this video informative and you like what's going on here on the Joe Trekker channel and the Joe Trekker community, please like, subscribe, and then leave a comment about, I don't know, leave a comment saying something that'd get you arrested in Canada. All right, with that, we're gonna roll into it. All right, guys, as you can see, we're out here in the Mojave Desert. We got M81 on because I can. All right, I don't care. I don't care. Oh, why is he not wearing Cry camo? He always talks about American made. I don't care. Well, I'm poor, all right? I'm poor and it's windy and I'm still using a single GoPro, so meh. Complain in the comments. First thing we're gonna be covering in part 2 of the basic AVID shooter kit setup is gonna be Kevlars. So I brought this one into this conversation not because I think that everybody's gonna have one or that everybody who is an AVID shooter needs one, but if you can get it, I really suggest it. We got the op score. This one is issued to me, and then we also have the hard-headed vets, right? So hard-headed veterans, big difference is that op score, obviously it's hard to see, but it's gonna have an arc rail, right? Which is pretty common. There's a lot of aftermarket for that. And then your hard-headed vets is gonna have this M-lock rail. So the one thing I would say is make sure you know what you're looking at. The armor ratings for Kevlar are gonna be different. You don't need to match your plates. They're not gonna match your plates. Just make sure that you're buying something that's worth using and then wear it when you shoot. I will say having a Kevlar is really nice, especially if you own night vision, right? Also, look good, feel good, fight good, right? Buy a Kevlar and feel cool. Buy a bump if that's all you're gonna buy, but I do suggest some kind of a headpiece just for the mere practice of it or making sure you can run your night vision. When I bought my PVS 14s, I bought a bump because I couldn't afford a Kevlar at the time, so that I was able to actually practice with my PVS 14s, right? So that's the idea. Just make sure that you have something like that. And bumps are super cheap, guys. So if you really have to downgrade to it, I wouldn't suggest running the bump, but practicing with the bump is definitely something you can do. All right, guys, so next we're gonna talk about is gonna be Ear Pro and Eye Pro, right? I know I'm wearing these super sick, and honestly, I think that because of how cool they are, they're gonna protect my eyes better. But if you're not as cool as me, you really should be running something like this, right? This is ESS. There's ESS, there's Oakley. Everybody pretty much makes some kind of Eye Pro. The difference being that these are what you call Z87. So they're ballistically rated and they're not gonna shatter on impact. These might shatter and I might get something in my eye. I look cool though. As far as Ear Pro goes, dadgum. All right, as far as Ear Pro goes, right, we have these Pelletors. These are comm Pelletors, really expensive. And then Sorden, how much did you?
300.
300. Okay, so also expensive Sorden, but these are comm compatible as well. If you're one of those guys, if you're that far into it. But I would say for the AVID shooter that Walker is an amazing brand as well. I think it's 80 bucks for their comm compatible, so it's probably cheaper, like 40 bucks maybe, give or take. I think the last time I saw it, it was 40 bucks for the Walkers that are not comm compatible, right? And they're gonna be noise canceling, This is really great for your avid shooters because they're going to continue to shoot and talk to their buddies. Maybe they're practicing drills where they need to hear, and that's what they train to as well, right? Is being able to shoot and you still want to hear. This isn't some flat range kind of deal where you're shooting and you don't need to hear anything, so you put foamies in, right? So just make sure you have some kind of an ear pro and some kind of an eye pro. A lot of people, even with how much safety has been pushed on the YouTube platforms and in courses and everything else, people still don't shoot safe at home. You need to do it. It's gonna happen. I've literally seen dudes who are completely out of the fight get hit by shrapnel from multiple different things, ricochets, all that stuff. So make sure you're wearing the right stuff, and you don't need to lose your hearing over having fun, okay? Just, it's not worth it. Wear ear pro. Next thing we're gonna talk about is shoulder padding, chest padding, and cummerbunds. Right here, I have my buddy's JPC. As you can see, it has shoulder padding. There's a bit of a controversy, but I'll tell you, if you're wearing your kit for a super long time, shoulder padding is gonna go a long way. The little bit of comfort that you get from it is gonna have you thinking more about what you're doing instead of how much it sucks wearing kit. So I really do suggest that you have some kind of shoulder padding. Obviously, this is Cry's, right? Now for the Marine Corps, these Gen 3s, they have an insert in them. I do not run that insert though. So technically speaking, there is no shoulder padding in here, right? Inside, what I have is a plate and soft armor. The padding I took out. The reason being is that I'm not really huge into wearing the chest padding, especially the issued one. It weighs quite a bit when added to the full kit. This is already kind of a heavy kit. But what I did instead, which you'll find really interesting, and I think that Marines out there who are trying to find a way to get rid of that chest padding but still have shoulder padding, this is something that you might want to do. And all right guys, so what I've done here, and I'm gonna regret taking this out because it's hard to put in the right way. What I've done is I've slipped cut up isomat into those shoulder pads. Old school Marines, you probably see pictures, they have a ton of E-tape, right, wrapped up around their shoulder. And what they're doing is they're attaching isomat to the outside. But with this 3rd gen, this whole area is actually a pocket. So now I can just take this, slide it in before I go out to the field, and now I have shoulder padding without the weight of the inserts on the inside. I really would suggest, if you need to do some kind of a DIY shoulder padding, go crazy. They sell isomat in the civilian sector just like you find it at the PX if you're in the military. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be these cummerbunds, okay? So, like I showed y'all last time, I have the skeletonized cummerbund. That side has an admin pouch. This side is blank right now. Skeleton cummerbunds, I really like these things. There's Molly all throughout it. But there's a lot of different types that you can actually run that are just as good as this. The reason that you see this so much is because of the airflow that you get. When you're wearing something like the issued version, which I have right here, when it's on your side, it gets really, really hot. It encompasses the heat like pretty good. So back to the topic of comfort, right? Keeping your kit comfortable is going to keep you in your kit longer without worrying about pain or anything like that. I also have experienced issues where I get chafing from how sharp these edges are. They'll rub up on like my sides and my lats, and I'll actually have like huge like chafing underneath my lats. So that's definitely something that you want to look out for when you're buying cummerbunds, is avoiding that it touches your lats, and maybe get something a little bit smaller than this while still having that molly. And then another variation you might find is elastic ones. These are great. The only problem I have with this is that it does not have any molly, which is why I ended up buying skeletonized cummerbunds. So a lot of kits do come with skeleton cummerbunds right off the bat. You'll probably get lucky. But if you want to run something else, there's just a couple of options for you. Finally, I want to come back to the chest padding, right? So I said I took it out, and I said it was something I was gonna cover. So you're probably wondering why I don't have chest padding, why I don't suggest it. The reason I don't suggest chest padding is because if you fit your kit up correctly, oh my gosh, this wind, dude. If you fit your kit up correctly, you should not have an issue. And if you go watch, dude. And if you go watch my first video, you'll see I talked about fitment for the plates. Just make sure you're doing that with your straps. Make sure that it's gonna hit those two places, right? That collarbone and just above the belly button. You're not really gonna see a need for padding. Just for a visual for you guys, cummerbund fitment usually is pretty archaic. These are just like rubber bands that are holding it in, essentially. And I tie it up to the right tightness. You kind of have to play with it, but once it's good, the kit fits right the way you want it, and you won't need any kind of chest padding. I don't suggest it unless you seriously have some kind of an issue with chafing. At that point, I would suggest some kind of chest padding. The next thing we're gonna talk about is gonna be attachments for the AVID Shooter kit setup. First thing I wanna talk about is gonna be back panels. So right here, I have a back panel. This one's actually a zip up. So it mollies on to the rear. It also has a zip. This is especially helpful for grunts out there that need to store things in between their hydration pouch. If you are now running with your bolt cutters or anything like that, you put that back here, you're good to go. Also, if you're spending a lot of time in your kit, you have a hydration source. So you have a place to keep that. Within here or within this backside, depending on your mission set and where you need to keep gear. That's gonna be up to you. The other kind of back panel you could have is not a panel at all. It's just what we call a hydration pouch, and you just keep a Camelback in there. So with your Camelback, if that's all you need, then run this. These are super cheap. You can get these all over the place for like nothing. So if you're doing long-term stuff and you wanna run a Camelback, put it right there and you're good to go. Takes up no space. So the next thing, something I wanna dive into a little bit again, is gonna be these placards, right? You have your admin pouch, a couple of things in there. I'm not gonna dive into that stuff yet, but you have an admin pouch and then a few different types of mags. I suggest practicing with different mags to see what you like, what runs well. Right here we have the Amend 2 mag, your good old Waffle P mag, and a steel mag. Once again, make sure you have that follower that's not gonna let your rounds fall in on each other inside of the mag, right? A little bit redundant, but I figured I would give you a showcase now that I do have the mags here. As you can see, I made an adjustment to this kit. I took off this mag pouch, I put a tourniquet pouch here, and now I have a wing pouch with the mag in it. It's loose, but once it's kitted up, it's super tight. And the real reason that I bring mags up again is because I wanna actually talk about a mag count. So within the military, we're issued about 6 mags, probably 7. So you'll start with 6 mags in your kit and 1 in the gun. If you've been shooting for a while, you know how quickly you go through 30 rounds. If you see yourself shooting multiple sets, then you need to have somewhere along the lines of 6 to even 8 mags. If you're gonna run a chest rig, you can up that, but I would say within an armored plate carrier, 8 mags is probably your go-to. The rest of them you're gonna have to store in your pack. All right guys, this sand is killing me. Now, tourniquet placement, but a little more specific this time, right? I got this here in the front. Obviously, when wearing, this is reachable from both sides. But how many tourniquets do I wanna run? So right now, I have 3 tourniquets. I have 1 on this kit, I have 1 in the shoulder, and then I got 1 on my leg here, right at the bottom. A lot of people will run 4 tourniquets. These are just the ones that I had on me at the time, so I threw them together. I do have more. I do suggest that you have multiple tourniquets if you're going to be continuously shooting, preparing for some kind of a fight. Sometimes 1 wound is gonna take more than 1 tourniquet depending on how long you go without care. And that's gonna be a topic for future videos. Staying on the conversation of you being somebody who continually shoots, it's safe to assume that you probably have a pistol. And if you have a pistol, you're gonna need extra mags. you're gonna have to learn how to reload off that as well. What I have here is a mag pouch, right? It also has a pistol mag pouch right in front of it, or a single pistol mag pouch. You can run any of these wherever you want. If you're running a pistol, you probably have some kind of a gun belt with your holster for your pistols. And if that's the case, I do suggest putting your pistol mag pouches on the belt, because that's going to lead to easier reloads, and you're avoiding putting those in your way on your kit where you're reloading your rifle mags. Next thing, guys, is gonna be that dump pouch. So back to this belt here, we have a dump pouch. We got another Amazon special dump pouch here. This one, it's really nice. It's got a rigid edge on it, and the reason being, anybody who's ever used a dump pouch for their mags or whatever for a long duration, they know it's pretty hard to use our issued one and get stuff in there without fumbling the bag and missing the hole, right? This is my issued dump pouch. As you can see, it's not a rigid edge, and sometimes you just kind of like don't get it in there. So maybe buy a simpler dump pouch, or buy an issued one because they're pretty cheap, and then just practice with it, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, right? But if you're an AVID shooter, you should be training to shoot with tactical reloads. Speed reloads are nice, and there's a lot of scenarios as a civilian where you're gonna need them, but if you're just a grunt watching this, really invest in a dump pouch that you work better with. I still have this one because I've used it for so long that I actually use it really well, and I don't have that issue anymore. All right, guys, finally, as far as attachments go, a knife. So keeping in the theme of combat, are you gonna use this to hurt somebody? Maybe, but the real need for a knife goes beyond that. If you're wearing your kit, there's a million circumstances where you could use a knife. If you're an AVID shooter, I'm sure you know that you use a knife every day at work. You need it on your kit as well. Make sure you have your knife. For me, I use my knife to open MREs. You know, peacetime Marine Corps, that's what it's for. You're gonna want one. You're gonna want a knife for multiple situations. It would be a super long video if I just went into everything about why you need one. Just make sure you have it on your kit. All right, guys, now we're going to be moving into the pocket gear items. What I mean by that is things that you're not necessarily gonna molly to your kit, but maybe it's something in your pockets that would be considered a part of your kit, or it fits within one of your admin pouches, right? First thing we're gonna cover is going to be a freaking multi-tool. You gotta have a multi-tool. I know we just talked about knives, but this isn't just a knife. I can't tell you the amount of times I have taken apart my weapon using this in the field, or the amount of times that I've had to literally fix items in the field using a multi-tool. And I mean everything coming down to like the file, right? It's a super important item. Make sure you have a multi-tool. It's gonna save your butt, and it'll keep you on the range longer. Next thing, a flashlight. This one I had in my pocket. I really think that everybody should have a flashlight. You're gonna wanna use it. Maybe you had to switch over to your pistol and you don't have a pistol light. It doesn't really matter the circumstance. Just make sure you have a spare flashlight. Batteries go out all the time. Have one of these ready to go. Next thing is gonna be a Sharpie. So I'm gonna bring it back to this IFAK. My purpose for having a Sharpie is for medical. We need to write down on like our cards whenever there's an issue. Then we attach that to the person who has their injury, and you have to write on it somehow. Inside my IFAK here, I have a Sharpie. It's not necessarily readily available, and that's fine. You just want to make sure you're able to maybe pace the targets. Maybe you're just shooting at the range. You can mark your targets with the Sharpie. You can mark wounded. There's just a million reasons you might want it. Maybe you're in the field and you need to write stuff down. Not going to dive into all the field craft, but you do need a Sharpie. Make sure you have it. Next thing, guys, coming back into my admin pouch here, I have the puniest roll of E-tape, but it should just go to show you're gonna need E-tape. And for those of you who are wondering why I'm saying E-tape, it's just electrical tape, okay? Electrical tape is used for so many things. Your cord management, for night vision, for pressure pads on your weapon, field repairs on your kit, I've done that quite a bit actually. There is no end to what this is going to be used for, just like your multi-tool. So make sure you're carrying some kind of a tape, preferably though electrical tape. It goes a long way. After a few hundred rounds, you're going to find that your gun gets really hot. Right here, I keep my gloves. These are 511. I keep them on my belt and they fit really well. They actually are capable of like using your phone, things like that. So I have a lot of uses for this at work. If you're not shooting with gloves, you're gonna burn yourself. These ones are old. I have holes all in them and I need to buy new ones. And then actually, great example, field repair, E-tape on the glove. So just a real life example of why you might want to run E-tape in your kit as well. With gloves, right? The use of them has a lot to do with the heat of your gun and just not messing up your hands so that you're dealing with infections later. A lot of people, like the guys at Spiritus, which I keep complimenting because their videos are amazing, is having some kind of FR or like leather gloves, right? These are just gloves from when I was ranching before the Marine Corps, but being able to have some kind of a glove that has leather on it is going to go a long way when it comes to heat management and not hurting your hands, right? So this might be an excessive example, but I do have these in my truck at all times, just making sure I take care of my hands so that I can keep going. With that, guys, I consider that to be everything that is pocket gear for your avid shooter or even your basic grunt who is running around in the Mojave like me. All right, guys, the final thing that I want to talk about is a belt. Just like the Kevlar or the high cut, it's going to be something that might be considered too much for a shooter at home. What I'll tell you is the belt is going to reduce your clutter, okay? So for me, I have my belt, and this is actually how I run my belt normally. So I got a mag here. So this is like one of my easier reloads, especially in the prone when I can't reach these mags, which is something you should be practicing too. You're able to run that dump pouch. I keep my gloves on here. I was reaching the wrong way. Obviously, for those grunts out there, I got my grenade pouches here. And then finally my IFAK, okay? The belt is actually set up the same way that I normally run it. Guys, I really do suggest finding a belt. This one was super cheap. It was like 60 bucks. It's Condor. Once again, I know it's Chinese, but I was a boot when I bought all this stuff. So, Junior Marine. Here I have an example of the issued belt. If nothing, you have a belt. So, running the issued one, is it preferred? Not necessarily because of how far we've gotten with technology, but I do suggest having some kind of a belt. If you're not that guy, then you're gonna have to deal with the clutter in your kit. That's just the way it is. Another reason that I run the belt, I'll give you a practical example for all you grunts out there. This right here was my pillow through all of my advanced schools and everything that I've done. When you're out in the field, you're like, I can't get out of my kit, we're in the defense. Just go, oh yeah, right there. So guys, buy a belt so that you have a pillow, if nothing else. Finally, guys, I'm gonna leave you with this. From Ephesians, it says, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. Once again, none of these verses are gonna be off topic, though they might sound it. Do you need to be ready and do you need to train? Yes. Do you need to be lethal and do you need to be a killer? Absolutely. But guys, first and foremost, people are people, and this war that we're fighting is not against flesh and blood, but against the evil. So make sure that you're ready, because there is evil out there. And though it seems flesh and blood, just make sure you're picking the right fights.
Say Christ is King.